Part 16. Infinite Doomsday Start Draws Luodu Mechanic. Author, Shan Mao Aichiji. Chapter 151. Regarding the plan of the Paladin, Lugger and Tia were naturally not surprised. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. This was the idea they deliberately conveyed to Akira. Even Akira, who intended to protect the Paladin order and mediate the conflict between the two parties, had to admit that Lugger's statement made sense. Since she knew that the other party would take the initiative to retreat, Minerva could no longer stay idle in the next few days, and dragged everyone to stroll around the shops in the central area. In addition to Tia's alchemy workshop, there are also various shops such as weapon shops, equipment shops, pharmacy shops, and even food shops. It's a pity that Tia can make most of them, and with a more versatile Lugger, the shops here have almost no appeal to everyone. However, their wandering around also has other effects. That is, more and more humans responded to Tia's call and decided to go to the second shelter to open up a new home again. It seems that because people saw them wandering around the central area openly, while those paladins actually took the initiative to retreat, they naturally simply and crudely believed that they were very powerful, stronger than paladins. With this idea, the call posted by Tia on the bulletin board in front of the alchemy workshop was naturally seen by more people, and the number of people who were interested increased exponentially. Even so, in the end, there were only less than 30 humans who left Rogue Town with Tia and others. This is not a bad thing, seeing that Tia was a little dissatisfied with the number of people. Ruger immediately comforted her. After all, we are going to open up Wasteland and rebuild our home. If there are too many people, the three of us can't take care of it. Don't say it, what he said is really right. After a few days of repairs, everyone left Rogue Town. The three of them plus the prisoner Anya guarded the less than 30 ordinary humans. 30 people are not too many, and with their messy belongings, they also formed a team of dozens of meters. Although there were not many monsters on the road and they were not strong, those hard-haired rats hiding in the dark often stopped the team halfway. As a result, the 3+1 who were responsible for the alert were almost too busy. Although the prisoner of war Anya learned about her relationship with Ruger from Akira, she never wanted to admit it. She thought it was better to be a prisoner of war forever, just like recognizing a thief as her father, no, recognizing a thief as her grandfather. Although the three did not do anything to her, she went to the blacksmith shop next door and spent her own private money to ask someone to make a pair of chains and trapped herself. When others saw her locking herself, those who didn't know thought that Ruger and others had good control over their subordinates and clear rewards and punishments, and everyone dared not disobey their orders. Those who knew thought that Anya's M attribute was awakened and she started to play performance art. Well, in fact, the so-called knowing was only Minerva. So from this day on, Minerva was appointed by Ruger as Anya's supervisor. Because she really knows how to strangle someone's chains and punish him severely. In the name of making the best use of things. From Anya's performance after everyone returned to the second shelter, Minerva, the supervisor, was quite qualified. After a short journey through the forest, which was not long, but not trekking through the mountains or wading through the water, the group finally returned to the shelter. At this time, it had been 8 days since Tia and others left here last time. Because the environment here has been polluted by magic energy, Ruger and others had to clean up the place inside and out before letting everyone move in. Then, the scene of the three people before splitting into 3 teams and being busy appeared. In the end, before the first night, everyone successfully completed the preliminary construction of the shelter. With Tia's successful infection of the fungus, Ruger's task of helping Tia complete the food transmission was finally completed, and 600 points were obtained. At about the same time, the witch Anya also cleaned up the potion she had buried. But there was still a trace of magic energy, so that kind of delicate work would have to be done slowly in the future. On Ruger's side, he led a dozen young men to set up a defensive position near the built firepower point, and also conducted shooting training. The so-called firepower point is a general-purpose machine gun set up on a high platform like a bunker. The word general purpose means that it can be used as a light machine gun carried by a single soldier, or mounted on a vehicle or gun rack as a heavy machine gun. But Ruger didn't even take it off for the infantry to carry, and he didn't even arrange light machine guns or assault rifles for the soldiers. In addition to the twists and turns such as guarding against spies, the main purpose is to gradually let these ordinary people gradually become familiar with the use of firearms. The use of a single-person machine gun is too complicated, so it is better to fix it on the gun rack first, so that these people can get familiar with how to load the belt, how to troubleshoot, and even how to change the barrel. In addition to the machine gunner and his assistant at the firepower point, everyone else has a Mauser Carp 40. These two famous guns from World War II are just used to make the new generation of human resistance soldiers familiar with the differences and similarities between continuous fire assault weapons and single-shot precision weapons. The MP40 uses pistol bullets, and has a short effective range, but has high accuracy within the effective range. With a little practice, you can even achieve good shooting results by shooting directly from the hip without sights. The effective range of Kar 98K is much higher. If it is not limited by the notch rear sight, it can even be used as a sniper rifle with an optical sight. It can be said that these two weapons are not only excellent in their own positioning, but also have good scalability. They are simply the best teaching aids for novices. After teaching them the basic usage, Ruger let them try the two weapons on their own. Good shooting skills are fed by bullets, and Ruger has recovered a lot of bullets for these two weapons in the arsenal of the ghostly dungeon. He himself is not very willing to use this old weapon, so it is just right for his men to practice target shooting. Time passed quickly, and as the sky outside became completely dark, monsters gradually followed the smell of the remaining magic energy and entered the shelter area. This is just right. Ruger didn't say that he didn't take action, and he didn't even let the machine gunner on the firepower point take action for the time being. Let the newly trained riflemen try to get rid of these wandering teams composed of zombie skeletons and fallen demons. As for the result, how should I put it? It reminded him of the hot tempers of the instructors who taught them shooting in high school and college. At that time, he couldn't understand why the instructors were always angry. Now, if it were him, he would feel sorry for them. Excluding the 5 machine gunners, the remaining 8 people, including the assistant machine gunner, were also using rifles. As a result, 8 people and 8 guns, the sound of the guns alone would scare the monster away, and no bullets hit the monster. Fortunately, as Ruger discovered the problem, he consciously controlled the rhythm of everyone's shooting, let the monster get closer, and finally someone successfully killed the monster. It turned out to be the old problem of novices, the accuracy of long-range shooting was not high. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 152. After that, the human soldiers fought more and more smoothly, and Ruger was completely relieved. There might not be natural sharpshooters or snipers among these people, but they were still good riflemen of average level. At the same time, Ruger also found that he could actually get points for killing monsters by the group of people he taught personally. After discovering this situation, he simply picked a few people from the people who followed Tia to do infrastructure construction, and did not teach them himself, but asked other riflemen who had achieved some success to teach them how to shoot. The monsters killed by these people could actually provide points for Ruger. Now he could finally be sure that the monsters killed by these human riflemen could be counted in his name, not because they were his students, but because they were his subordinates. The night lasted at least 9 hours. However, except for the first 2 hours when there were a little more monsters, there were not many monsters entering the second shelter area afterwards. On the human side, after gradually becoming familiar with the performance of firearms in actual combat, They not only stabilized the front line, but also took turns to rest. In the end, the first night passed without any trouble. Although the points they contributed to Ruger were not many, they were in the 3 digits. It was a small windfall. Time passed little by little. In the blink of an eye, it was already 10 days later. The construction of the shelter was basically completed. Near the original supermarket building, they built a more solid living area with the dismantled building materials. The reason why it was so fast was naturally because Ruger provided them with material conversion services. The raw material recycling and reproduction function of the logistics space was very useful in this post-disaster reconstruction work. At the same time, someone took advantage of the situation and received a little kickback in the process, and accumulated a lot of materials that were damaged or unusable by humans in the supermarket. For example, the electronic chips in the damaged smart appliances in the home appliance area. After all, the second shelter was not completely covered by dark magic, and these electronic chips were fortunately not damaged by magic radiation. This made the depreciation discount that Ruger could get when exchanging electronic equipment finally drop to less than 50%. Although he cannot use these in places full of dark magic, if he returns to places like the Ghost Dungeon again, he can make advanced equipment such as reconnaissance and strike drones. Generally speaking, helping to clean up the supermarket is a win-win situation. At the edge of the living area where the fungus blanket grows, Tia waved her hand and built a breeding farm. In order to prevent someone from maliciously tampering with the food, there will be guards patrolling here 24 hours a day. And Ruger collected and used it immediately, and directly set up cameras here. It was the ones in the original supermarket. Leaving the living area, near the entrance and exit, everyone built a small military camp. There is an armory room built with equipment provided by Ruger. There are 50 light weapons stacked inside. Still mainly MP40 and Kar 98K. The former uses a 9mm Paramabellum pistol, which is the bullet used by Ruger's PT-92 pistol. So the supply of bullets is very sufficient. The latter uses the famous 8mm Mauser full-power rifle bullet. 8mm is the bullet diameter, and it is also marked with the barrel diameter, that is. This old ammunition that appeared in the late 19th century, Luger did not intend to exchange it in the logistics space vending machine. However, he recovered a lot of it in the underground arsenal, enough for the people here to use for a while. When it is all used up, it will not be too late to replace them with new NATO standard bullets. Originally, they were asked to use these two guns first, just to let them gradually improve their technical and tactical levels and slowly upgrade their weapons. Luger also wanted to get them some pistols, but after being teased by Tia with those World War II old pistols, he gave up this idea. Because the most World War II old pistols in his hands are called Luger, P08. That is the origin of his name. There are actually two types of pistols translated into Luger in Chinese. One is this World War II old gun, Luger, also translated as Luger, which is the surname of an Austrian firearms expert. There is also an American version of Ruger, which is often deliberately translated into suckling pigeon for ridicule because of the problem of homonymity. This is the surname of a USA designer. In addition to the Luger P08, the representative works of the former master of Ruger also include the Parabellum pistol bullet. The name Parabellum comes from the Latin motto of DWM, German Weapons and Ammunition Manufacturing Company, where he once worked, Civis Pacem. If you want peace, you must first prepare for war. The latter suckling pigeon master, well, let's call him Master Ruger in a neutral point, but he is similar to Master Chiappa, and mainly makes civilian guns. In the Ruger timeline, Ruger even occupied the throne of the first place in the North American civilian firearms market for nearly 30 years. Therefore, the reputation of the two Ruger masters is comparable to that of China on the other side of the ocean. To say that they are not well known, they are all powerful people who are well known and even the first in various fields. They are famous, but they are too far away from ordinary people. It is probably because of this that they are translated into Ruger. Ruger, the protagonist, is actually not very interested in these things. But he had an unreliable old father who gave him such a bad name. Fortunately, because the above things were too far away from different people, he was not affected in most cases. Unfortunately, teenage males are a high-risk group for military enthusiast syndrome. As a result, he was fine in elementary school, but he was teased a lot in junior high school. The most troublesome thing is that the Ruger family started by imitating the Japanese bastard box, which is the Nanbu 14 type semi-automatic pistol. That was also the first generation of Ruger pistols. Although a more complete statement is that the Ruger took the bastard box confiscated from the Pacific battlefield, added some elements of the Luger P08 and Colt pistols, and then created the first generation of Squab. But when children make fun of their classmates' names for fun, they don't care about those. As a result, Ruger left a small childhood shadow. After being in this world for so long, he even has the ability to make guns, but he has never thought of making any of the two Ruger pistols, which is more or less due to this childhood shadow. Therefore, he naturally would not distribute these guns to the Human Resistance Army. As a result, he escaped the first day but not the 15th. Tia found the boxes of Luger P08 pistols that he accidentally took out, and the nightmare reappeared. Fortunately, after explaining the reason, Tia was very considerate and said that she would take care of his feelings and would not distribute these pistols. But she proposed a condition in exchange. You make a gun for me, do it in front of me, make it yourself, and don't use your alchemy. Why? I want to collect it and use it as personal protection. But this gun is not as useful as your fist sword for you. I don't care, I want it. Seeing that Tia turned on the unreasonable mode, Luger seemed to understand vaguely. This matter seems to be more symbolic than practical. Then what else can he say? He can only satisfy. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 153. The weapons issue is over, and the problem with the underground pipeline has been solved. Google search reading. However, everyone still arranged for Lauke to check regularly, to prevent the ghost from coming in at any time. In short, with the completion of the construction of the shelter, things here are gradually getting on track. Ruger's mission to save the Human Resistance Army on the verge of destruction is also completed. The 2,000 points are finally in hand. During the construction of the shelter, Ruger also discovered a strange thing, that is, there are only 6 women among the less than 30 humans. 2 of them are not even adults, and there is an old woman who looks over 50 years old. He didn't care at first, because when he was in Rogue Town before, he found that there were not many women among the human spectators. And there are 2 reasonable explanations for this phenomenon that he already knows. The first explanation is Rogue. Rogue Town is named after Rogue, and until now, the Rogue troops are the mainstay of resisting monsters. This is because the power system of the Rogue sequence is the most complete. From ordinary humans to novices, to ordinary soldiers, to elite soldiers and even fully awakened Amazon warriors, all the training techniques of all stages have been passed down. This means that even if someone is not talented and cannot fully awaken to a Nephilim, as long as they are willing to work hard, they can use the training techniques of the Rogue to become a qualified warrior stronger than ordinary people. However, the inheritance of the power of the Rogue is only applicable to women. There are more women among the Nephilim or quasi-Nephilim, and relatively speaking, there will naturally be fewer women among ordinary people. On the other hand, the new order that the Paladins have always wanted to establish also requires that the offspring born by humans are as many as possible Nephilim. Those women who are too poorly talented to become rogues can only say that it is difficult for Nephilim to be born in their blood. But they still have fertility. If they are allowed to marry ordinary men, they will only give birth to more ordinary humans who cannot awaken. Therefore, a long time ago, the Paladin cult forcibly assigned these ordinary women of childbearing age who could not awaken to rogues to Nephilim for various reasons. Although they were given various high-sounding names, in reality, the actual status of these women assigned to the Nephilim was so low that they could not even be called concubines. They were what Anya had said when she cursed Tia before, pure reproductive tools. Ordinarily, this behavior of not treating people as human beings should have caused strong opposition from the rogue. Most of them were indeed opposed to it openly or secretly, but the paladins were too talkative. What they meant was that those ordinary men who could not awaken as Nephilim at least had some strength and could do some hard labor, in exchange for their protection and blessing at the cost of Nephilim's life. But those women could obviously become rogues to join the battle and obtain the right to marry freely, but they gave up this opportunity for various reasons. As mentioned before, unless they were lost humans, as long as they had a little potential of Nephilim, as long as they were willing to work hard, they could at least become the lowest level rogue warriors who only mastered 1 or 2 skills. This is the key to the Paladin cult shutting up most of the rogues, that is, those people know that they can fight for those rights if they work hard, but they give up voluntarily because they are afraid of hardship. They do not deserve the sympathy of the rogues. The result is that these ordinary human women are of no benefit to Rogue Town except for their fertility. If they do not give birth to offspring for everyone, they will have no place in the system of Rogue Town. The Paladin cult did not continue to use tough and iron-blooded rhetoric, but changed the subject. Instead of watching them gradually being eliminated by time and reality, it is better to leave them a way out. That is, accept the plan given to them by the Paladin cult, let them contribute their fertility, make a contribution to Rogue Town, and therefore enjoy the blessing of Rogue Town openly. The Paladin cult is still very skillful. They did not force it at first, but gave such a choice. That is, those ordinary women of childbearing age who have no skills, have not awakened Nephilim, or even have not become rogues can choose to become a fertility partner of a Nephilim. In this way, not only can they obtain the right to live in the central living area of Rogue Town, but they can also enjoy the highest food rations among the civilian class. If the child successfully awakens as a Nephilim, her treatment will be even better. Because it is a free choice, there are not many people who oppose it at first. But gradually everyone found that instead of suffering to become a rogue, more people prefer to comfortably give birth to children for others. When the rogue side found that their new soldiers were getting fewer and fewer, while the Paladin cult had more and more soldiers, the Paladin cult had become a force that could determine the survival of Rogue Town. These things were slowly learned by Ruger from Tia and Minerva's friends when he was in Rogue Town. When he just put those words together, he was also amazed by the Paladin cult's generosity and unrestrained ideas. This set of silent substitution seems simple, but the initial batch of startup funds alone is a big problem. However, after completing their own work, the group of paladins at that time kept going outside Rogue Town to explore and excavate ruins and collect living resources. During the process, they not only obtained a large amount of food for the Lost, but also increased the population of the Lost for Rogue Town. After being rescued by the bright and beautiful paladins, most of the women among the Lost were directly transformed into their reproductive partners on the spot. It can be said that they really relied on high-intensity combat to exchange for countless offspring. Even Ruger could not confirm whether this generation of paladins had planned it long ago, or just had a momentary distraction, but their actions were greater than their thoughts, laying a biased foundation for the later generations. In other words, Ruger was sure that the current paladin cult was simply bad, but he was not sure whether the first generation was bad or stupid. Anyway, with the success of this path, they naturally embarked on the path of Nephilim supremacy. Because the path of the paladin cult implies a rule, only those who awaken to Nephilim can be considered qualified citizens of Rogue Town and are qualified to live here. In addition, although they objectively let more women survive, the life and death of ordinary human men seemed to have nothing to do with them. Ordinary women were forced to have children by the Paladin Order, and ordinary men could only have offspring by marrying with rogues or even female Nephilims. But childbearing itself is a great loss to the female body. Even if rogues and Nephilims are in good physical condition, and even don't take confinement, and return to the front line the next day after giving birth, their strength will still be affected objectively. Rogues are okay, after all, they are from the Amazon branch, and their original lifestyle is similar to this. But Nephilims will only subconsciously avoid marrying with ordinary humans. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shan Mao Ai-Chi-Ji. Chapter 154. In short, the ultimate goal of the Paladin's policies is to exterminate all ordinary humans and leave only the Nephilim. Although Ruger cannot ignore the reality and say that their behavior is absolutely evil. After all, in the end times, most people have become Nephilim, who can fight against monsters head-on, which is more or less a good thing. But he is still full of disgust with this method. Because their approach assumes that ordinary humans are powerless when facing monster attacks. However, in fact, the existence of the lost weapon is the biggest negation of this idea. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. They are also well aware of this, otherwise they would not have consciously restricted the production of the lost weapon when Catala was running the alchemy workshop. After Tia took over, they were even more blatant and made things difficult, just to drive Tia, or at least the lost weapons, out of Rogue Town. Therefore, Ruger had no good feelings towards those guys who were high-sounding on the surface but racial supremacists behind the scenes. As mentioned before, in Ruger's eyes, the current members of the Paladin Order, especially the Paladin leader Austin, were simply bad. But Ruger had seen the ordinary humans in the local area who had lost their wisdom heritage. He knew that even this level of deception was enough to deal with those who were not well educated. What's more, the Paladins still held a trump card to change the situation. That is, they are the spokespersons of the human faith in Rogue Town. The so-called Holy Paradise. The education level of humans is low, and coupled with religious brainwashing, it is too normal for those guys to play around with them. Even so, there are still resistance forces with resistance consciousness among ordinary people, and Ruger also thinks they are quite remarkable. In short, under the dual influence of the former largest force in Rogue Town, Rogue, and the current largest force, the Paladin Order, there are few women in the human resistance army, which is too reasonable. Among the less than 30 ordinary humans, there are only 6 women, which is barely 1/5. But if we count the high-end combat powers such as Nephilim, only Ruga is rare, Tia Minerva and Anya are both women. It seems that even Laukoya prefers females. The ratio of ordinary people to men is 4:1, while the ratio of high-end combat power is 1:4. The human resistance army is really miserable. At first, Ruga didn't care about the lack of women, because it was normal to infer this result based on the known situation. But after a few days of training in the workshop, Ruga got more familiar with those people, and then he learned another news from them. When the shelter was breached by monsters, a considerable number of women belonging to the human resistance army were captured by monsters. And the one who captured them was a monster leader named Bloody Countess. It is said that she loved to bathe in fresh human female blood to keep herself young. As a result, she was killed due to public outrage. However, when the demons invaded here, they woke her up from the underground tomb of the tower and made her a minion of the demons, and even a leader. This time, she still liked the blood of young women, but no longer for her own immortality, but to demonize them and infuse them back to give those women eternal life. Eternal life becomes a fighting tool for demons. When he heard the story of the Bloody Countess, Ruger was stunned. He immediately recalled that this was a task in the first act of the original work. At the same time, the taskbar, which had been completed before and now became empty, also popped up the corresponding task. Task 1, Goal, find the whereabouts of the abducted female human resistance. Task reward, 500 points. As soon as he saw the description of the task and the few points reward, Ruger knew that the abducted women were now mostly in danger. It's not a rescue, it's not a rescue, it's a search. It's not a 2,000-point reward, nor a 1,000-point reward, but a 500-point reward. In Ruger's opinion, this is not a hint, it's a clear indication that they have been transformed into monsters by the Bloody Countess. Perhaps the humans who told him about these situations also knew this, so they only told him these things and didn't ask him to help rescue those people. Ruger didn't think he was a god, and there was no way he could rescue them. But since the task was triggered, he immediately decided that as long as the shelter was settled, he would try to kill the Bloody Countess. This is a small boss endorsed by the original work. Although the task reward is not much, the killing reward should not be small. In addition to daily construction, Ruger would go out hunting from time to time. This is related to the location of the shelter. Rogue Town is basically at the westernmost end of the world area that Ruger has explored. To the south, it is close to the big river. Go northeast from Luodu Town for about a few kilometers to the place where Ruger and Tia met for the first time. Turn east from there for about 10 kilometers to the war front at the junction of the icy plains and the burial ground. Go northwest from the war front to the edge of the forest, and then go southwest for about 2 kilometers after entering the forest to the location of the second shelter. Starting from the second shelter, go directly south out of the forest, and walk west for a short time, you will soon see Rogue Town. So from the war front to Rogue Town, if you choose not to take the main road, but to go through the forest in the north, you can easily find the second shelter. Simply put, draw a straight line between Rogue Town and the war front, and move upward about the same distance from the middle of this line, close to Rogue Town, about 1/3 of the way, and this position is the location of the second shelter. So in fact, the second shelter and Rogue Town are more or less a relationship of lips and teeth. The most important thing is to ensure that the rogues fighting on the front line do not continue to retreat because of unfavorable wars. Otherwise, one day, the second shelter may face the war front of monsters. At that time, even if the monsters do not actively attack here, they will mistakenly enter the shelter because of their large numbers. Based on this situation, the so-called hunting of Ruger and his people actually has 3 meanings. The first is the simplest, which is hunting around the shelter. The second is to go to the front line to help rogues fight monsters. As for the third, it is to go to Rogue Town to investigate something. There is no need to go into detail about hunting, and let's put aside the matter of going to the front line to help. Let's talk about the matter of going to Rogue Town to investigate first. This matter is related to the previous battle. To be precise, it is related to the bald paladin Daniel who was killed by Ruger. Because when Ruger killed him, the kill record given by the system was: killed the cunning demon Belial's follower fallen paladin Daniel Adams, and obtained 73 points. This kill record is only 20 or so words, but the amount of information is so huge that Ruger's head almost exploded. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shan Mao Ai-Chi-Ji. Chapter 155. As a paladin, he was taken back by the demon god as his follower. Was this his personal fall, or did the entire paladin order become a Nephilim supremacist because of this demon god? As mentioned before, was the paladin order's long-standing and huge investment in the detour due to the influence of this demon god? Although it cannot be proved for the time being, this possibility alone makes both Ruger and Tia feel a chill. Although Tia is a local, Ruger seems to be more familiar with the demon god. Since the system in his mind was converted from the game mod in his computer, the information system in the computer will naturally have it. This includes the background information of the Diablo series of games. According to the original setting, the 7 demons in the Dark World are divided into 3 demons and 4 demon kings. The first of the 3 demons is the demon of fear Diablo. Others are not listed one by one. But this Belial is just the king of lies. In other words, he is just one of the 4 kings. But now, in the system, its title has become the cunning demon god. What does this change represent? Ruger is very concerned. In comparison, the Paladin order being accepted as a follower by the demon is not so shocking. Because this has already happened in the original work. In the rainforest port city of Karast in the 3rd act, the city in the rainforest at the end of the level is the location of the Temple of Light of the Zakarum order, the city of Travank. And the Zakarum order in the entire city has become the minions of the hateful demon Mephisto. The Paladins once belonged to this Zakarum order. In the setting, they seem to have found that the original order's style of doing things was contrary to their ideals during the process of the Zakarum order being gradually controlled by the demon, so they broke off their relationship with them and set up their own sect. But if Ruger uses the existing data to integrate and examine it, there is always a sense of seeing the aristocratic family deliberately splitting up and not putting all their eggs in one basket. It is hard to guarantee that the separated paladins will not be affected by the demon. Furthermore, for Ruger, the prototypes of Zakarum and the Paladin order are clear at a glance. It is obvious that they are based on the Roman Catholic Church and the Crusades. In European folk culture, especially Western European folk culture, the Crusades is a relatively positive concept. Because it was by serving as crusaders for the Roman Catholic Church that the West Franks and even Angles, who were originally Germanic barbarians, took off their animal skins and were recognized as civilized people by the mainstream Europe at that time. But apart from these beneficiaries, in the memory of most other civilizations, the Crusades are really synonymous with burning, killing, looting and committing all kinds of evil under the banner of God. From this point of view, it is news that the existence of the Paladin has not been demonized, and it is normal to be corrupted and degenerate. However, these are all Ruger's brain hole analysis based on background information. What happened in this plane, he still has no idea. So, there is no other way. Even though he knows that he and others have been blacklisted by the Paladin order, Ruger and others still carried out the 3rd kind of hunting. The secret of hunting the demon's followers in Rogue Town. Unfortunately, this matter did not trigger the system task. Before he left Rogue Town, he actually had time to explore, but he did not do it because he felt that between tasks with points rewards and tasks without system recognition, the former was more important. In order to prevent Tia's plan of recruiting people to set up a new mountain from encountering unexpected complications, he also delayed this matter. As a result, at this time, although Tia still had Sarah's arrow charm, she could still enter and exit the city gate unimpeded without worrying about being reported by Rogue, but the Paladin side had already filled this loophole. That is, there are Paladin secret sentries at each city gate. So as soon as Ruger and Tia returned to Rogue Town, they were spotted by the Paladin cult, and they were watched all the way. Ruger was mentally prepared for this situation. Anyway, he brought Tia along this time just to use the power of Lauguayazeo. Can the Paladin cult keep an eye on Rugxia, and can they also keep an eye on the invisible, intangible, and even imperceptible shadow links? Moreover, unlike in the Enchanted Dungeon, Old Noisy in the Dark World fragment can be far away from Tia, and can survive in the wild for a long time without returning to replenish energy. So the two pretended to wander around the town while letting Old Noisy go out and let it explore the Paladin cult camp alone. Especially around the barracks where Bald Daniel lived before. However, it failed and it couldn't get in at all. Every time it approached there, the alarm would suddenly ring, and then release all-round holy light. Ruger's understanding, the so-called holy light, like the magic power of hell, is also a special energy with properties between lightning and sunlight. According to normal physics, lightning and light are both electromagnetic waves, and their essence is the same. But because of the different emission modes, wavelengths, and frequencies, the characteristics shown are also different. As a result, Old Noisy encountered a similar situation as the last time he fought with the Cyber Dragon. It could not enter the area with such strong energy radiation. After many attempts, they failed, so Ruger and Tia had to let Old Noisy come back. In the end, this matter could only be put aside for the time being. After all, the Paladin cult is keeping a close eye on them now, and their biggest trump card, Old Noisy, has also been restricted. The best way for them is to wait for the news to pass. They hesitated for a while, and then decided to go home that day. But they couldn't come here in vain, so Ruger and his men simply mobilized Sarah's die-hard supporters, the Rajas, to help them reversely scout the Paladin cult. Then they sent the news to Sarah with arrows. Ruger and his men happened to check these when they went to the front line to help Sarah hunt. As a result, after they left, the Paladin cult in Rajtown was really scared. They didn't believe it, so the two guys came over and tried it a little, and ran away without doing anything. What's more, the holy light shield of their military camp was indeed activated, and those who monitored the two people did not see anything wrong with them. People are most afraid of things they can't understand. The two men made a feint and ran away, but the military camp was attacked by an unknown existence. The combination of these two things made the Paladin Order's top leaders immediately confirm that there must be something fishy going on. Originally, Austin was planning to clean up Rogue Town after they left for the first time. Whether it was the town's defense or the composition of the townspeople, they wanted to make extreme adjustments before Sarah, the powerful figure of the rogue faction, returned to the town. As a result, they were a little cautious about the sudden appearance and disappearance of Ruger and the others, and had to postpone it temporarily. Before they left, they also met Sister Akara again. However, what should and should not be said were all made clear when they met last time. This time, they just greeted each other out of courtesy and talked about family matters. It's the legendary not talking about business, but only talking about personal relationships. Speaking of personal relationships, the relationship between Ruger and Akara is a bit awkward. From the fact that Akara actually had Ruger's photos, it can be seen that his ex-girlfriend Chirurgia and Akara are definitely not ordinary friends. It seems a bit inappropriate to say close friends, but the degree should be about the same. It can even be said that Akara is the person Chirurgia entrusted with his care. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shanmao Aichiji. Chapter 156. So as a predecessor, Ruger felt a little awkward when he saw Akara. It was the kind of awkwardness that comes from seeing the relatives and friends of a predecessor. As for Tia, it was different. In general, Akara's attitude towards Anya and Tia should be similar. She was even more friendly towards Tia. Probably, Tia's elders had a good relationship with her. In particular, Akara, as the highest leader of Rogue Town, allowed the Paladin Order to grow for the sake of the future of Rogue Town, and even somewhat ignored their persecution of Tia. From this point of view, she still owed Tia. However, although Tia was somewhat dissatisfied with this, she always expressed understanding for Akara's helplessness. The body of the senior nun of the Blind Sisterhood is already over 80 years old. Even though she is a Nephilim, her physical fitness is stronger than that of ordinary humans, but she cannot resist aging. In this case, as the current leader, she can only choose one of the young leaders who may lead Rogue Town to survive as her successor. Survival is the first priority, and the rest can only be put aside. During the conversation, she also hinted to Tia many times that if Tia's path can also lead Rogue Town to survive, then Akara will also give Tia some support. But for now, the Paladin cult in Rogue is the most powerful and attracts the most Nephilim. After Akara's death, Rogue Town will inevitably become a paladin cult. The so-called cult is just a nice word, but it is actually racism. Hearing this information, to Ruger's surprise, Tia was neither angry nor argued, but just nodded silently, indicating that she understood Akara's ideas. After that, there was no more. After leaving Rogue Town again, Ruger asked about this matter, and Tia said, although she has her own difficulties, this road is her choice. If I were her, I would definitely not suddenly choose another road after choosing a road for more than 10 years or even decades, before encountering major setbacks. She said she would help me, probably just being polite to me, not really. After hearing this, Ruger couldn't help but be impressed by Tia's sharpness and clarity. It's rare that she can think so clearly, so he doesn't have to worry about it. On the other hand, what prevented the Paladin cult from making rash moves was not only Tia and Ruger's occasional disruptions, but also a series of good news from Rogue led by Blood Crow Sarah on the front line. Originally, one of the conditions that made the Paladin cult more active was the sudden defeat of Rogue led by Sarah on the front line. Think about it, when Ruger just arrived in this plane, even Tia's 3 teammates were recruited to support the front line. Even the witch Anya, who was nominally in the Paladin order, went there, which shows that the front line was in danger. The Paladin order had no plan to help Sarah consolidate the front line. Even if they sent a master like Anya, they were just doing some superficial work. After Sarah disappeared, the druids and necromancers continued to support her, but the witch Anya took the opportunity to return to Rogue Town. From this point, it can be seen that the Paladin order did not really want to stabilize the front line. For Rogue, their plan was not difficult to see through. In short, it was the same as before, they wanted to turn Rogue Town into a Paladin town. To achieve this goal, the rogues must fail, and the paladins must come out to turn the tide. Therefore, when Sarah returned and the front line had a series of good news, the paladins must also be quiet and wait for the next favorable opportunity. Sarah kept advancing forward, and the front line of the battlefield had gradually moved from the vicinity of the Ice Source burial ground to the dark forest. But when they got there, the rogues' progress was hindered again. Because the monsters there had become very powerful. Among them were the fallen rogues and fallen knights who retained a lot of wisdom. They were the acquired transformation demons created by the bloody Countess Mary mentioned earlier. The combat power of these guys has obviously exceeded the scope of ordinary levels. Ruger tried to fight them, and there was a nightmare level in the kill record. This means that they should be nightmare level monsters coming out of some cave, just like the monsters in the evil cave. As for that cave, there is no need for Ruger to explore it. All the rogues know that it is the Forgotten Tower of the Bloody Countess. To be precise, it is the maze where the underground tombs of the main tower of the Bloody Countess's castle are located. The Bloody Countess used to love to bathe in the blood of young human women, and now she demonizes them by contaminating the blood. The young human women here are not only ordinary humans, but also rogues. It can be said that this Bloody Countess is the life and death enemy of the rogues from generation to generation. Each of them had heard about the tragic situation in the Forgotten Maze. In short, the front line of the rogues stabilized again. But Sarah was not satisfied with this situation. After a period of tug-of-war, Sarah decided to let the large army contain the enemy's main force on the front line while organizing a small elite force to enter the enemy's nest and destroy their headquarters. Once their nests hidden underground are opened and exposed to the ground, the dark world magic condensed inside will gradually dissipate, and the strength of the monsters will also decrease. In order to achieve this goal, Sarah would not let go of such a good attacking force as Ruger. She had witnessed the power of Ruger's heavy weapons with her own eyes. Even her fantasy of blowing up the enemy's nest was just an idea, and it was based on Ruger's strength. When she told Ruger and others about this plan, Ruger also triggered another task again. Task 2, Target, kill Bloody Countess Mary and destroy her underground nest. Task reward, 2000-4000 points. It turned out to be a task that could get a generous reward of 4,000 points. Ruger was immediately tempted when he saw it. What's more, this task itself overlaps with the task he received before to explore the abducted human resistance women. It is equivalent to actually walking around again, but completing two tasks at the same time. However, he now needs to ask Tia's opinion on whether to do it or when to do it. Now they are still a team of 4. The Necromancer and the Druid had been helping Rog on the front line during this period, and they both ended their single lives and found their other half. As a result, they formed a new team of 4, and Tia's previous team could only be officially disbanded. However, a Druid left, and a mechanic came. One less Necromancer, but one more plumber. Okay, plumber. Tia's side, once again formed a team of 4. In this new team of 4, the mechanic is really good at fighting, and it is not an exaggeration to say that one is worth 2. But the plumber often works without putting in any effort. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shan Mao Ai-chi-ji. Chapter 157. There is no way, because the witch Anya does not want to acknowledge Ruger as her grandfather. Moreover, she does not want to acknowledge that the enemy she grew up with has become her step-grandmother. In comparison, she would rather remain a prisoner of war. But prisoners of war, of course, will not work hard. The captain of the 4-man team is still Tia in name. But whether it is the old teammate Minerva or the prisoner Anya, they all know that the actual leader of the team is Ruger. So when Ruger asked Tia for her opinion, both of them felt like watching others show off their affection to stimulate singles. Anya's performance was pretty good. She was dissatisfied, but not stupid. When she found out that the hateful man actually dared to act like a grandfather and beat her up, she naturally would not confront him head-on. A good woman does not suffer a loss in front of her, and she has learned her lesson long ago. But Minerva did not have such scruples, and her big eyes rolled up and almost turned into a table tennis ball and fell out. There is no doubt that Tia's final choice is to join Sarah's special team to enter the underground maze of the Forgotten Tower and kill the Bloody Countess. However, before taking action, they need to make some additional preparations. First of all, it is the newly built second shelter. Although the Paladin Order in Rogue Town has not made any new moves for the time being, it does not mean that they will not come to cause trouble when they find that Ruger and others have left. So someone must stay here to prevent the emergence of enemies that are beyond the ability of ordinary soldiers to deal with. There are only 4 people in Tia's team, and one is a prisoner of war. It is obviously impossible to leave Anya to watch the house. Although Ruger used some means to make his granddaughter from another dimension barely improve, he did not completely brainwash her with mental magic. In her current state, if the Paladin Austin just hooked his finger, she would probably fall into the crazy love mode again. Of course, Ruger could not stay, he still had to complete the task. If he didn't stay, Tia would not stay. In the end, the poor Minerva was left behind to look after the house. Fortunately, Sarah returned the favor and sent a 3-person team of Rog to help, so that Minerva would not be too lonely. But this alone was still not enough. In order to let the war maniac, who was actually the second most powerful among the 4 people after Tia, stay and look after the house with peace of mind, Rog even modified the modified Ferdinand self-propelled mortar howitzer and gave it to Minerva. He optimized the driving system so that Minerva could enter the cockpit and learn to drive easily. As for the mortar howitzer, he simply unloaded it. The main weapon of the car was replaced by the sharp blade spikes on the outer armor as Minerva had always wanted. However, Rog did not completely dismantle the turret, but installed 4 large-angle general-purpose machine guns there after a slight modification. In this way, the human soldiers left behind, even Rog, can operate the machine guns and provide some basic long-range firepower support to Minerva. This Ferdinand is really miserable. The original model was a heavy tank destroyer with a powerful medium-caliber anti-tank gun. As a result, the main gun was removed by Ruger and replaced with a rapid-fire mortar howitzer used by airborne support tanks, turning it into a self-propelled artillery. It is still a self-propelled mortar howitzer that is generally regarded as a light vehicle. Now it is even more excessive. Not even a gun is left, and it is directly replaced with 4 machine guns. It is not a 127 caliber heavy machine gun, but a 762 caliber general-purpose machine gun. A good heavy tank destroyer has become an infantry support vehicle. The chassis of the Porsche Tiger tank is crying. That said, this level of tank is definitely not enough to face the attack of the entire Paladin order that is determined to flatten the sanctuary. But if it is just a guerrilla who comes to cause damage like before, it should not be a problem. That kind of guy is probably not a match for Minerva and the others. Will the Paladin order come to launch a full-scale attack? This possibility cannot be completely ruled out, but it is extremely unlikely. After all, as long as Tia and Ruger are still alive, they can rebuild this level of shelter 1,000 or 10,000 times. Taking advantage of their absence to flatten this place will only give them a reason to kill the Paladin order. Austin has big plans and will definitely not do such an unwise act. But it's hard to say, Ruger added after analyzing the situation for Minerva. If this happens, just run away with everyone. You can run to the front line of Rogue, or you can go directly to the Forgotten Land Labyrinth to find us. Anyway, there is no need to linger on the shelter. There is a saying in my hometown, if you save the land and lose the people, you lose both the people and the land. If you save the people and lose the land, you gain both the people and the land. So, if that happens, don't hesitate, don't be afraid of losing everything here. Run. As long as people are there, we can take back everything we have lost. Minerva obviously has no interest in Rogue's strategic and tactical thinking. Instead, she is more concerned about the modified Ferdinand. Pointing to the modified Ferdinand infantry support vehicle parked in the military camp garage, she asked eagerly, "Then, what about this steel behemoth? If you lose it, will you also replace it for me?" Ruger was somewhat helpless when he heard this. He had just quoted a famous saying, trying to show off, but he ended up flirting with a blind man, who didn't care at all. But forget it, who told him to tell a barbarian female warrior about tactics? He sighed secretly, calmed down, and immediately replied firmly, "Of course, no problem. If that happens, you can use this thing as you like, and it doesn't matter how you ruin it. I will make it up to you later. Long live." When Minerva heard this, she was more than 100 times happier than when she heard him withdraw his strategic ideas before. How excited was the female warrior! She almost picked up Ruger and lifted him up, just like an old father teasing his daughter. If Tia hadn't been quick to offer herself to the female warrior, it would be hard to say what would happen in the end. The detachment incident passed without any waves. Leaving behind more than 20 human soldiers, 3 rogue female warriors and a Minerva, Tia and the other 2 returned to the front line of the dark forest again. When I saw Sarah again, she had also completed her pre-war preparations. However, Ruger was quite surprised to see the team of elite rogue warriors who were going to enter the underground maze with her. Because none of the 4 rogue female warriors used the traditional rogue weapons, bows and arrows. Their weapons were also several types of firearms of different sizes, that is, the weapons of the lost. HK-MP5 submachine gun. HKG-36 assault rifle. HK-21 general-purpose machine gun. And the PSG-1 precision shooting rifle, which Ruger had not seen in this plane, was also from HK. Infinite Doomsday start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shan Mao Ai-Chi-Ji. Chapter 158. The old guns during World War II were okay, and they were okay during the Cold War, but as soon as we entered the late 20th century and the 21st century, the standard small arms of a certain country's army, except for imported products, really became the HK family's barrel. Google search reading. The weapons in the hands of Rogue under Sarah were all excavated from the ruins of the Lost over the years. In addition to ordinary humans, there will also be sporadic domestic soldiers there. Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. The weapons left by the latter were dismissed by the Holy Knight Order, and they slowly gathered them together with Rogue. Once these firearms are damaged or need maintenance, they will need the help of an alchemist who is proficient in the weapons of the Lost. So starting from Cataly's master, 3 generations of Tia's family have a very good relationship with Rogue. When she realized that Ruger was a little surprised to see these weapons, Tia quickly guessed the main reason for his surprise and immediately explained it to him in a low voice. "Do you think we can't repair such complex firearms?" "You are right. For a firearm of this level, let alone making it, you have to work hard to repair it. If any part is accidentally broken or lost, the entire gun will be scrapped. So, these kind of precision firearms are the best products from Sister Sarah. This time, I spent a lot of money to use them for my subordinates." "This makes more sense," Luger nodded hurriedly. "As a top master like Tia, her own firearm is Kyapa's folding 3-barrel shotgun. How could it be possible for Rogue to just HK the whole family? In the final analysis, HK's products are good, but they are expensive and difficult to copy, and are not suitable for mass use in the end of the world. Ruger always likes to use them, because he wants to maximize the cost-effectiveness of discount coupons, and his aesthetic really prefers HK brands." He had recovered a batch of several types from the HK family bucket in the Charming dungeon. They were all equipment from the Mountain Special Forces Brigade that the Charmings had captured. Even the HK-21 general-purpose machine gun had not appeared much before. Although the number was scarce, he did get 2 or 3 of them. The only thing he has never obtained is the sniper rifle PSG-1, which cost us $10,000 for a complete set in the 1970s. The performance was pretty good at the time, but it was mainly used for anti-terrorism operations. The main positioning of this thing is mid-range precision shooting. It has limited scope of application on military battlefields and is more used in fields such as special police and counter-terrorism. At this time, even he was quite curious when he saw Rogue actually using this gun. "Why, are you interested in this lost weapon of my subordinates?" Sarah couldn't help but raise her eyebrows when she saw his interested expression. "It's not like we can't discuss it if you want. The HK-417 you gave me last time was pretty good. How about trading that one for ours?" "Well, it seems like their bullets are all universal, right?" "Yes," Luger nodded, but then asked thoughtfully, "These guns don't count. I always feel that many of your subordinates have started to use lost weapons recently. Did you suddenly start taking out the things in your inventory and use them, or did you find another batch of arms from other lost ruins? Is there a story behind this?" "Ha, I really can't hide this kind of thing from you," Sarah smiled, acquiescing to Ruger's words. "However, before I explain, let's confirm the previous business first. You said you want me to trade your HK-417 for your PSG-1, Luger smiled. "Sister Sarah, I didn't expect you to be so good at business. To be honest, if we only look at the book data, the transaction proposed by Sarah to let Ruger exchange HK-417 for her PSG-1 was actually Ruger taking advantage and Sarah suffered a loss. The PSG-1 is a semi-automatic precision shooting rifle designed specifically for medium and short-range high-precision shooting. At this point, it can even be called a sniper rifle. This firearm system sold for as much as $10,000 in the 1970s. Its accuracy can reach less than 1 arc minute, that is, less than 1 MOA. The arc minute is a unit commonly used by later British and American systems to describe the accuracy of small arms. Its original meaning is very simple: 1 hour is divided into 60 portions, and each portion is 1 minute. 1 minute is divided into 60 parts, and each part is 1 second. The unit of angular degree also has two subordinate units, also in 60s, namely arc minutes and arc seconds. In this way, it is easy to think that the reason for using this unit is to decouple accuracy from distance. In other words, I only need to calculate the arc minute number of a gun's accuracy, and it will be accurate for everyone. But in fact, the accuracy of any gun is inseparable from its shooting distance. The accuracy of a gun can reach 1 arc minute at a distance of 100 meters, but the accuracy may become 2 arc minutes at a distance of 200 meters. In fact, the reason why this unit is commonly used in Britain and the United States, especially in North America, is that it is convenient for calculation under the imperial unit system. The offset distance corresponding to 1 arc minute at a distance of 100 yards is no more than approximately 1 inch. This is the main reason why it is popular in USA, a country that clings to the imperial system. Therefore, the PSG-1 can achieve an accuracy of 1 dime at 100 yards, which means that its error at this distance is only 1 inch, which is about 266 centimeters. This accuracy is not bad. In comparison, the HK417 is almost the same as the HK416 with a caliber of 556, except that it uses 762 mm NATO bullets. That is to say, this gun is actually an assault rifle. Although its long barrel version is also used as a precision marksman rifle, and its civilian version and semi-automatic version have become a formal precision marksman rifle. Its accuracy can reach up to 2 minutes of angle, or 2 MOA, which is very good. What's more, such an assault rifle, a complete set, is only about $5,000 in the 2010s. So, it seems that Sarah lost money by exchanging PSG-1 for HK417. But in fact, the account cannot be calculated in this way. Because they are not traded in the technological plane with sufficient supply. There is almost only one source of lost weapons that can be obtained, that is, excavated from the lost ruins. An antique like PSG-1 is almost impossible to be brand new. Even if they have not been used much, they can only be considered 80% new at most because they were produced too long ago. The HK417 that Ruger took out was either assembled by himself in the arsenal or purchased directly from the gun vending machine in the logistics space. They are not only in a brand new state, but also have guaranteed performance, which must be above the average level. This back and forth can basically even out the issue of the price. In addition, with the current battlefield situation of the rogues fighting monsters, the PSG-1 precision shooting rifle, which can best demonstrate high accuracy at 200-400 meters, has no place to play its advantages. The 762 caliber NATO standard full-power rifle bullet, as explained many times before, is more than enough if its target is an ordinary person. But the problem is that the opponents of the rogues are monsters, and if you want to pose a fatal threat to monsters, you can't use this kind of ammunition too far away. Basically, the rogues will not shoot at a distance of 100 meters. In this way, the high accuracy of the PSG-1 is even more useless. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shan Mao Ai-Chi-Ji. Chapter 159. On the other hand, although this gun also has a 20-round magazine, Sarah, the subordinate, only has 3 5-round magazines and 1 20-round magazine. Google search reading. This caused her endurance on the battlefield to be seriously insufficient. In contrast, Ruger had replenished at least 10 HK417 magazines for Sarah. In this way, if this deal is completed, it is obvious that Sarah has taken a big advantage. Of course, since the gun can be recycled and a new one can be purchased from the vending machine at a discount price, Ruger will definitely not lose money. In general, This is a mutually beneficial transaction between two people with different backgrounds and conditions. So soon, the two reached a consensus and completed the deal. However, after getting the gun, Ruger was snatched away by Tia before he tried it in actual combat. Then he tried to fire a few shots at the monsters that were still attacking the line of soldiers not far away, and found that the bullets fired by this gun could not explode at all, so Tia immediately lost interest in it. Pouting and throwing the gun back to Ruger in disgust, the bomb girl rolled her eyes at him as if she was looking at a prodigal. Ruger understood what she meant. The little girl thought that he had made a bad deal for Sarah's sake. As for why Sarah had such a big face, Ruger would have to review and explain this question later. It seems that although the little girl has never troubled Sarah, she still cares about something she did to Ruger. It is just that you must be on guard against others. Sarah did not take the initiative to explain anything, but instead threw Ruger a unique wink of a mature big sister, like adding fuel to the fire. As a result, Tia looked at Ruger with even more unfriendly eyes. Ruger couldn't help shrinking his neck when he saw this, knowing that he would have something to see again at night. How should he explain this to Tia, or just tell the truth? In fact, he agreed to this deal entirely because of his collecting addiction. Of the weapons he has exchanged or made himself, HK alone accounts for a small half. But even so, he has not collected all the products of this company. He also wants to achieve the achievement of getting all the HK family buckets one day. Although HK has too many light weapons, even if the experimental, out of print, and later proven to be unusable ones are eliminated, the absolute number is still considerable. However, can this reason of collecting obsession convince Tia? Ruger is really unsure. In fact, Ruger is not the only one who feels hurt in this actually fair transaction. The rogue named Bella, who used the PSG-1 to fight for a long time, was also quite hurt. After all, how many real warriors don't take care of their weapons? What's more, as elite rogues, these few have fought hard on the battlefield for a long time before they were recognized by Sarah and got the good guns she kept in the bottom of her box. I didn't expect that they were taken away by the superior before they were warm. But she still had to listen to the orders of her superiors, so she could only do it. Just like that, the precision shooter Bella was clearly in pain, but she had to pretend to be calm on the surface and took the new HK-417 from Ruger. However, when she saw that the gun in the man's hand was exactly the same as the one her boss Sarah had used recently, her heart stopped bleeding immediately. Not only did it not bleed, but when she held the new gun and felt the beauty of the new generation of ergonomics, her heart immediately turned into a leech or a vampire bat, sucking back all the blood that had flowed out before. "Captain, sir, this gun is so comfortable to hold." Bella was surprised and uncertain, and saw Sarah had come over to teach her how to use the new gun. And she quickly transformed into a scumbag and soon forgot about her ex. After all, for Rog, who was on the front line and the combat distance was only a few dozen meters, the advantage of HK-417 over PSG-1 was too obvious. The world where only Ruger was injured was finally achieved. Fortunately, Sarah is a person who is swift and decisive. After confirming that both sides are ready, she has no intention of waiting at all, and immediately arranges her men to launch a large-scale attack on the front line of the monsters in the dark forest. After attracting all the powerful monsters to the front line of the war, she immediately led 4 men and Ruger to take a shortcut across the dark forest and enter the dark wasteland. In this way, Tia had no time to interrogate Ruger. After going around the monster gathering area in the dark wasteland, everyone finally arrived at the destination before dark. The Forgotten Tower. This is the former castle of the Countess named Mary, or the main tower of the castle. When she was killed for her sins in her life, perhaps because of resentment or the appreciation of the Queen of Pain Andariel, she was pulled back from hell and became the Bloody Countess. With the invasion of monsters, most of the castles on this continent have collapsed, even including the huge fortress on the Stone Plain. However, the Forgotten Tower of the Bloody Countess, as its name suggests, seems to have been forgotten by war or destruction, and still stands here. But as the Rogers have heard from their leader Kasha since they were young, the structure of this forgotten tower that still stands has actually been almost destroyed. It is just a huge tombstone /. The real main body of this building is actually an underground maze-style monster nest expanded from its underground tomb. Maybe they never thought that someone would cross the war front and kill here directly, or maybe the soldiers who were supposed to guard here have gone to the front. In short, after killing no more than 10 fallen rogues and goat-headed men, everyone successfully pried open the door and entered the underground maze. It was just that the previous success made the rogues a little too optimistic. Especially Bella, who just got the HK-417. Because of the caliber problem, its gun is more powerful than the MP5 with pistol bullets and the small caliber G36. And because it is an assault rifle, its flexibility is much higher than the HK-21 general-purpose machine gun with the same caliber bullets. Half of the previous enemies died under her gun. As a result, as soon as she entered the underground maze, she still ran in front excitedly, wanting to take the lead and make a breakthrough for everyone. As a result, the opponent was fine after 1 shot, and still fine after 2 shots. After 3 and 4 shots, the opponent still stood firm. That was only her first target. There were more than 10 monsters of the same level around. She originally wanted to kill more monsters by herself, but she couldn't even kill the first one for a long time. In a blink of an eye, the hunter became the prey and was surrounded by angry monsters. Help, help. They are so hard. The monsters here are no different from those on the ground before. They are still mainly demons with goat heads and human bodies and female demons who look like fallen rogues. But the ones here are a little different, because the goat-headed man has changed from brown to blood-red skin, and the skin of the fallen rogue has also turned blue. Infinite Doomsday Start draws Luodu mechanic. Author, Shan Mao Ai-Chi-Ji. Chapter 160. Hearing 417 Bella's cry for help, the other rogues rushed forward to help. However, their attacks on the 2 monsters were much weaker than when they were on the ground. Seeing that the battle line was about to collapse, Sarah, who was dressed in rogue leather armor, almost took off the leather armor, revealing the sportswear made by Ruger for her, and transformed into an Iron Man warrior. Ruger saw her posture of taking off the leather armor and immediately understood her plan. Before he said anything, he felt 2 blazing eyes coming from behind him, which made his back cold. The next moment, Tia's voice behind him was very gentle, but it made Ruger tremble constantly. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. Hey, what are you waiting for? Do you really want Sister Sarah to transform for you? Do you like it? Huh. Why, how could it be? Ruger didn't dare to delay, and quickly set up the rapid-fire cannon, and 2 armor-piercing shells were fired, directly killing the 2 monsters that rushed to the front. To be honest, in this closed underground maze, the sound of the guns of the rogues alone was loud enough. But the sound of the 2 shells of Ruger, which were dozens or even hundreds of times more powerful, was stronger than theirs combined. When these 2 shells were fired, not to mention the rogues, even the monsters looked at him. Everyone else was like that, not to mention him who was right next to the muzzle. He was so busy talking to Tia that he didn't even wear a complete helmet. The helmet of his self-made Iron Man armor has a sound insulation and noise reduction system. In addition, he also wears a noise reduction headset. With 2 layers of noise reduction system, he can withstand the huge sound of the rapid-fire cannon. Now only his noise reduction headset, which was originally lower than that of light weapons, is still there, and the effect is naturally much worse. Even he himself was shocked by the sound of his own cannon. If there were communication headphones that emitted sound at the same time to offset the noise, the damage he suffered would be smaller, or even negligible. The best noise reduction effect of pickup noise reduction or active noise reduction headphones also uses the sound wave offset principle. It's just more sophisticated. It will actively release a sound wave with the same intensity as the external noise, but with the opposite peaks and troughs. It just completely offsets the noise, no more and no less. But as mentioned before, in places full of magic power, electronic equipment will automatically be damaged and cannot be used. This kind of equipment that first detects the frequency intensity of the noise and then releases the corresponding impact wave signal must use electronic chips. Ruger couldn't use this kind of thing at all now. If it weren't for his comprehensive attribute enhancement, these two unexpectedly strong gunshots alone would probably have cost him half his life. After discovering that he couldn't offset the noise of the rapid-fire cannon without the Iron Man helmet, he quickly took it back and fled with his G28 precision marksman rifle. The noise of this thing was much smaller, and he could withstand it even without the Iron Man helmet. But there was another problem: it was impossible to kill an underground monster with one bullet. The blood-red goat-headed man and the blue-skinned fallen rogue in the underground maze became Blood Clan and Dark Shooter in Ruger's kill record. As for why their defense was so much higher than that of the ground, Ruger knew it. Because they were in the underground full of magic, they had the affix of nightmare level. Just like the zombie fallen demons in the evil cave, they were also nightmare level. Converted to the level of the original game, the monsters underground are directly 36 levels higher than the monsters on the ground. The HP and defense have increased by more than several times. Of course, one thing needs to be explained: the monsters on the ground are not all ordinary. It is precisely because a group of nightmare-level fresh troops joined the battle that the rogues could not continue to advance. However, those nightmare-level monsters set out from the Forgotten Tower in the Dark Wasteland. When they reached the battlefront of the Dark Forest, their abilities had already declined due to the problem of magic leakage. They can only be called quasi-nightmare level. After these monsters left the Forgotten Tower, in order not to seriously reduce their strength, they would just rush to the front line. So those who stayed around the Dark Wasteland were still ordinary level monsters. Those guys would naturally be shot and killed one by the rogues. How big is the difference between ordinary monsters and nightmare monsters? Intuitively speaking, the most common and lowest level monsters will die directly even if they are hit in the head by a pistol bullet from an MP5 at a distance of about 20 meters. But those quasi-nightmare level monsters can withstand at least 5 or 6 bullets even when facing bursts of small caliber rifles. Of course, it is still at a distance of about 20 meters. When we arrived at the underground maze, we encountered red-skinned sheep-headed people of full nightmare level, and they could withstand at least 5 bullets even with full-power rifle bullets. The above are all situations when the head is directly hit. But in fact, facing such a chaotic battle, even if the 4 rogues are experienced, it is difficult to keep their guns on the enemy's head. In addition, the power of the guns they used was strong or weak, and even if they all helped Bella who failed, they could not save the situation. It forced Sarah to almost take off her clothes and transform, so you can imagine how embarrassing their situation was. The rogue with the MP5 could not even cause any damage to the enemy. If it weren't for Lugger's 2 shots to rescue 417 Bella, these rogues would have lost their members as soon as they entered the underground maze. Fortunately, after Lugger responded, they immediately stabilized the front line and did not pursue the rapid destruction of the enemy. Everyone concentrated their firepower on a monster and fought steadily. Their performance seemed to Lugger, and his previous doubts about Sarah's selection of people immediately dissipated a lot. It seems that Sarah did not choose them because they have rich experience in fighting nightmare-level monsters. The previous mistakes clearly show that they did not realize how strong the underground monsters are in advance. They may know that the underground monsters are very strong, but they did not intuitively feel how strong this very strong is. However, they quickly stabilized the front line after being hit, and immediately found the best response plan. This shows that although they are inexperienced, they have great potential. As long as they survive the initial adaptation period of inexperience, they should soon become qualified fighters, and their future prospects are limitless. This is probably the reason why Sarah brought them down instead of others. Haha, are we going to be the instructor's nanny for the rogues again? After thinking it through, Ruger immediately understood the real reason why Sarah insisted on bringing him and Tia along. If you want to lead a team of rogues who are inexperienced but have great potential and a promising future to quickly adapt to the fighting methods of the Lost One's weapons, the best instructors are probably the couple Ruger and Tia. Although he understood it, Ruger would not change anything. It was normal for Sarah to have her own plans, just like Ruger and the others came to help for other reasons.